Just as a reminder, if anybody would like to speak to the call to the public, we do ask that you complete a call to the public request card, which is outside in the lobby. It's a little blue card. You just go ahead and fill that out and bring it up to me. I can't get this. There we go. All right. We're going to call the governing board meeting of Wednesday, October 14th to order. It is 6:32. Lisa, roll call. Present.
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 And I would like to mention that the reason that Mrs. Anderson is not here tonight is because she serves on the executive board of the Arizona School Board Association, and they are in the middle of doing county meetings, and so that she's traveling all over the state for these meetings. So she's given an excused absence tonight. With that, I am going to ask, we're going to recognize a couple of people we have in the audience. We have Councilwoman Peggy Chapados, City Manager Gregory Rose, Vice Mayor Marvin Brown, and Councilman Henry Wade. And I would like to ask you if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. Adoption of the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda and remove item 7D. We're not quite ready to do that one yet. So do I have any other amendments or motions?
Motion to approve as amended.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next call to the public. I don't have any cards, so we can skip over that. And 3, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Chestnut.
Thank you, President Petray, members of the governing board. Stuff to report on because we have a very exciting week coming up. So we're going to start with our report from Maricopa High School. We have our Stuco president here tonight, and Sierra Reynolds, I'm sorry, and junior class president Alyssa Hollingsworth, and they are going to tell us all about homecoming week that's coming up next week. So I will turn it over to you. And I'm sorry I've forgotten the name of the third person. Saul, welcome. And I'll turn it over to you. You can use that cordless mic right there.
We do have something presented from you from Student Council. Okay. So this week in academics for the school, we took the PSAT today, and there was a ton of people who signed up to take the PSAT. So we were doing that today. Lots of people signed up for it, so I'm sure we all did well. And then next Saturday, all the seniors, or most of the seniors, are taking the ACT on the day of homecoming, so we have high hopes for them as well. And then... Okay. So since next week is homecoming, we have been planning a lot of stuff for that. It starts off this Saturday when we have the laser tag tournament, which is at Ultrastar, hosted by Tortosa, so a bunch of people have signed up for that. And then we also have put our Spirit Week into plan. We're doing the decades. So it starts off with most recent Monday for 90s on Monday. And then we also have the Powder Puff game to support breast cancer, so the junior and senior girls are doing that this Monday at 7 p.m. Okay, that was it for Monday. Okay. What did you start? Yeah. So you did this one? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Tuesday, our Spirit Day is Take It Back Tuesday, which is 80s. We're going to be dressing up in neon, leg warmers, and big hair. We will also be hosting at Ultrastar the Friday Night Lights movie. It starts at 6 o'clock p.m. and also 7:30.
On Wednesday, our Spirit Day is 70/60s, and it's titled Way Back Wednesday. ideal dressing is hippies, peace, bell bottoms, tie-dye. The activity is the Ram Fest. Basically, there's going to be a bunch of clubs from the school, community booths, and it's going to be hosted by Homecoming Committee. It's going to be at Copper Sky. The alumni game is also going to be that day at 7. There will be a snake wall there as well. And to finish off, there will be a bonfire from 8:30 to 9:30. Should be fun.
Thursday is our Throwback Thursday. 50s is greasers, poodle skirts, leather jackets. We're also hosting the MHS Mud Run teachers or staff versus students. To encourage the students to participate, we have asked Jen Miller to run if we get 50 students to participate. That will be from 7 to 9 o'clock p.m. at Copper Sky. Friday is Ram Pride Day, so we'll be dressing up in game night shirts, red, black, and white, and painted faces. We'll have our pep rally assembly towards the end of the school day. We also have the homecoming varsity football game at 7 p.m. versus Vista Grande, and also the alumni reunion assembly for them the alumni reunion at upstairs Lux Lounge from 9:30 to 2 a.m.
And to finish off the homecoming week.
Sorry, it's at Elements.
All right, to finish off homecoming week, there will be a homecoming dance in the cafeteria at 8 o'clock, which should be pretty turned up. And it's 50s dress. So it should be a lot of fun, something different. Instead of coming in like a suit, you come in dressed flappers, whatever, things like that. Looking good.
Student Council is also going around to businesses to ask them to decorate their businesses to encourage Ram Pride and support for Maricopa High School. And that's all we have for our Homecoming Spirit Week, or Homecoming Week, our Homecoming Decades Week.
Thank you to our students for being here and for having such a great plan for Homecoming Week. Thank you. We know it's a great community event, and also want to thank Principal Renita Myers, who is in the audience, as well as Assistant Principal Krista Cox. Thank you for helping with this project. And then we also have Leadership Teacher Alana Miller, who is here also. STUCO Advisor, I'm not exactly sure of your title, but thank you for doing all that and getting this so well organized. So it'll be a fun week, and we're looking forward to it. Moving on. So one of the things to report on, as you know, we take an enrollment count, an official enrollment count, the first school day of each month. October 1st, our enrollment continued to inch up, 20 more students. We were 6,447 students on that day, and we're up around 600 students over 3 years ago. So it's interesting to see that growth. It'll be interesting to see where we top out this year. Typically, we kind of peak out November, December, January, somewhere in there, but we'll see. So it's always good to have that number going up. On October 3rd, the Maricopa High School Orchestra achieved an excellent rating at the Arizona Band Boda Fall Festival, and they are in their competition season for band and orchestra, so some great musical opportunities for our students, and they've been performing well. So under the direction of Ivan Poor, and we're proud of the good work that they're doing. On the 5th, you should have received the district newsletter. It was delivered to 20,000 Maricopa residents. It was a 4-page insert into the In Maricopa newspaper, and a lot of the latest happenings in Maricopa Unified School District, some good pictures, some good statistics, and some good stories about our students and their success. So if you missed that, go back through the newspaper pile and pull that out and read those stories. Oops. On October 7th, we were informed that Angela Ebner is a finalist for Arizona Teacher of the Year. That means you're in the top 10. And then I believe, actually, that was a couple weeks ago we learned that, and then on the 7th we learned that she was one of the final 5 in the competition, and if you're in the final 5, you're considered an ambassador of excellence. So we're very proud of Angelia. I know that the Teacher of the Year will be announced on November 19th, and there'll be some details coming out about that in the near future. So we're very proud of Angela. She is a 5th grade teacher at Maricopa Elementary School. She's National Board Certified. She is involved in multiple areas of leadership in our school district, and we're very proud of her and the recognition that's well-deserved for her. So we are, I'd be shocked if she didn't win Teacher of the Year for the state of Arizona, because she does such a great job with our students. This afternoon, I attended the Maricopa Economic Development Alliance meeting, and it's a pleasure to be involved with that group. A lot of good topics, and the thing I appreciate about that group is that they have been including Maricopa Unified School District in marketing efforts for the city of Maricopa. And a lot to be proud of for public education in our city, and we have been featured prominently in some of those promotions, and it's nice to see that, and we really appreciate that support from that group. Well, as you just heard, October 19th through 24th is Maricopa High School Homecoming Week. It's also the 60th anniversary of Maricopa High School. And I know you students think that's ancient history, but some of us in the room have been around since 1955, you know, and I didn't realize that we dressed that strangely back in 1955, actually. But that is a picture of the 9th grade class that started in the fall of 1955. And so it's pretty exciting to celebrate a 60th anniversary, and that's part of the festivities. So a lot of good history there at Maricopa High School. Along those same lines, Mayor Price proclaimed October 19th to 24th Paint the Town Red Week, and he declared October 23rd to be Ram Pride Day. So we had a great turnout at City Council meeting there. I was not there, but Principal Myers was there. Board President Patty Coutre never misses a great opportunity like this. You can see her there on the right-hand side, and our student leaders were there, and we really appreciate the support of the City Council. They all got in the picture too, and very, very nice recognition from City Council. Want to remind you that on October 20th at 5:30 p.m. is the Pinell County ASBA meeting, and if you haven't replied to Lisa Hahn about your attendance at that, please do so. Should be a good meeting. Looking forward to that. And that is all I have to report on.
Thank you. All right, moving to governing board member reports.
Yes, I'd like to report. Last week I had the opportunity to go to the high school and meet with Miss Renita Miters, and I had, in the past, I have helped facilitate voter registration at the high school. So we had the opportunity to discuss voter registration and also all the different clubs that are at the high school, and I think they're doing a fabulous job, and the clubs are going well, and just doing an overall great job. So thank you.
Fill in for her. Just real quick, you know, Dr. Chestnut mentioned that we do have the Pinell County meeting coming up on October 20th. A few of us are getting awards, so if you can make it, it'd be great to do that. November 13th is the legislative workshop. It's a really good day-long conference. I know that myself, I'm going, Dr. Chestnut's going, so get with Lisa if you plan on registering for that. And then don't forget about our annual conference in December. If you want to do a hotel, it's out of your own pocket, but the rooms fill up fast. So they do have a, the Wednesday before that starts, they have pre-conference workshops for existing board members, and they also have the new board member orientation on that day too. So just make sure that you get that with Lisa as soon as you can. And as Dr. Chestnut pointed out, I was at the City Council meeting, and the kids did an amazing job, and the band, of course, always does an amazing job. And then Thursday, we had the chamber breakfast, and we focused on our nonprofits. I also serve as the chairperson for the Community Impact Committee for the Maricopa Chamber of Commerce. And we had our student council, and they did a phenomenal job. They got up and they talked about, the homecoming week and to encourage our businesses to paint the town red. And that was really nice for them to get up really early on a Thursday morning during fall break. So I want to thank them. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the Chamber of Commerce for the month of October is collecting used cell phone and chargers. They will be turned into 911 phones for the victims of domestic violence, and you can drop those phone and chargers off at the Chamber office, which is located on Honeycutt Road. And lastly, we're partnering with Costco. They're having a Costco school event on Saturday, October 24th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I have these flyers. If you shop between those hours, for every $50 you spend, our school will get a ream of paper. So it's kind of a good way of them giving back to our school. So if you shop at Costco, try to plan going on that day, and I have extra flyers here. And I think that's it. All right, work study. This is the fun part. So, Mr. Henry Wade, would you please come up? And why Mr. Wade's coming up, I want to read this to you because I didn't memorize it. The Maricopa Unified School District and the Arizona School Board Association is looking for community heroes of public education, HOPE, as part of a statewide campaign. The HOPE campaign was created and launched by the Arizona School Board Association as the annual theme to kick off the 2015-16 school year. The intent of the campaign is to spotlight educators, parents, legislators, business partners, and community members that inspire and unconditionally influence students throughout Arizona. Councilman Henry Wade is being presented a HOPE certificate tonight as he is a hero of public education for the Maricopa Unified School District. Congratulations, Henry.
Told this to superintendent that I was bringing my grandsons into the family, and his question was, where were they going to go to school? And of course, I told him that I'd probably pick a charter school somewhere. But no, absolutely, there was no question that support of the public schools is important to me, even to the point of making sure that people who are important to me participate in the process. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Presentation, Mr. Philip Smith.
Just to tell you a little bit about Mr. Smith, he's a science teacher for us at Maricopa High School in his second year with MUSD and Maricopa High School. So welcome, Philip.
Thank you so much for having me. As Dr. Chestnut, thank you, sir. Arrow button. Thank you. As Dr. Chestnut said, I am starting my second year. I was able to do my student teaching at Maricopa High School as well, so I've been here for a couple of years. Starting out, I had the opportunity to talk about just my experiences so far in the district. And first off, my story as a teacher isn't a very long one, so I thought I would take the opportunity to tell the whole thing. So, starting out with technical difficulties, there we go. My story began, I grew up in a very small town in West Virginia. In case you've never seen one, that's what fall looks like. Lots of leaves and mountains and things. My father was a construction worker. We grew up in a very, what we call, blue-collar area, and much different culture, if you will. The percentage of individuals that attended college from my hometown is an unimpressive 17%. So as the first member of my family to attend college, I have a very unique outlook as far as that goes. Perhaps more significantly to my story as a teacher, and something you might notice about me right up front is I am in a wheelchair, and I was born with a condition called cerebral palsy because of a brain injury at birth. So coupling all of these things together kind of shifted me towards away from the standard mining of coal, if you will, and towards an academic focus. So I was the first member of my family to attend college, as I said, and sort of fell in love with this thing called science. And as you'll see here in just a second, I really I enjoy thinking about the world in a lot of unique ways. So pursuing higher education was always something I wanted to do, and I was able to do so. I did so at the historic Marshall University in West Virginia. I'm very proud to say I had a very successful career there. While I was there, I made the decision to pursue medicine and research science, which I was very certain was going to make me a lot of money. And I was going to spend a lot of it, and I was going to have a very comfy career doing something that I thought was really fascinating. However, during my time here, I found something out about myself at this point in my life, and that was that not only do I need something that I love to do and I find interesting, but even if you reach a plateau, I personally feel that I need to be challenged intellectually on a continual basis. And that was something that I just did not find happening for me day in and day out in the same laboratory. So I really needed a big change in my life at this point. So that was really the biggest turnaround for me, is figuring out that I needed to be challenged differently in a lot of ways. And boy, did I find a job to do that. I made a really big switch here and moved 2,000 miles away from my hometown and joined the teaching college at Arizona State. I knew that instructing students was something that I thought would be interesting, but I really had no idea what I was getting into, to be quite honest. What I found when I switched into teaching was that the challenges never seem to stop, and they go all the way through. The standard teaching woes that we are all familiar with don't really stop there. But this is something that I found to be not only rewarding in a sense, but it doesn't really let me get complacent, which is something that I do not enjoy being. So like so many teachers that I talk with, I didn't ever see myself as a teacher. I thought that that was going to be something that I would never do. And this side of things isn't really what's important. Honestly, as a scientist, speaking about education, I like to do in mathematical terms. I'm a very physical-minded person, so if I could, I would like to make a fact that I've noticed about education as a whole, and that it's all about the numbers at the end of the day. At every level of education, numbers is kind of what controls us and dictates all the things that we do. So without wasting too much of our time, I would like to point out just a single number that is really the most important one to me, the number that gets me excited about being a teacher, and that is 178. So, a few facts here. As of this morning, 178 students are enrolled in Mr. Smith's biology class at Maricopa High School. With them comes 178 personal stories, 178 faces, which I am proud to say I have finally met names to and memorized, 178 sets of test scores that we are all in the game of making sure they reach the standards that we have in place for them, 170 home lives, and 178 different struggles that they bring with them every single day. They are 178 reasons why I come to work. I get to see almost every day 178 moments of brilliance. I get to see 178 learners learning. I get to see 178 shows of creativity. You have never experienced learning quite the same way until you have tasted the sweet success of a accurately labeled animal cell watermelon. I promise you. You may notice here today, Mr. Santos makes a wonderful student teacher as far as student presentations go. With these students, however, and as a first-year teacher, I have 178 daily challenges. There are 178 cell phones in the classroom. Sometimes there are 178 acrobats. But at the end of the day, there are 178 people that I get to see every morning and that will be there for me tomorrow. 178 things that make me laugh on a daily basis. I don't know if you can really see it here. We have a young man with a horse mask as well. I have 178 lab scientists that we experience different things with in science class that I am very proud of. So at the end of the day, this number is the one that dictates my career, and this is 178 reasons why I really enjoy this job for a really long time to come. So thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for that presentation. But we had one at the last meeting as well, and I got chills, and I did again today. And we have amazing teachers in this district, and they're doing amazing things, and I thank you for bringing them here to show us this and showcase this to the people on TV, because you guys really are making a difference. And I know it's a day-to-day struggle, and it's a lot of work. My mom was a school teacher, but I appreciate everything you do, and we all appreciate everything you do. Thank you for coming and taking the time.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Roush, you get to top that with the financial report.
Thank you, President Cotray, members of the board, Dr. Chestnut. Well, we have more than $178 in the bank, so that's good. But I do bring to you the July and August financial reports, and as always, there's a memo attached to the information, and there is quite a bit of information, as you know. And at the last part of the report, there is a comparison in enrollment too. I just want to point that out. And with that, I'm open to any questions if you have any. If not, that's fine.
Any questions?
Thank you for the breakdown that you sent. That really helped us
Yeah.
to understand it.
Yeah, it
So
does.
I appreciate that.
All right. And while you're up there, Mr. Roush, capital projects.
Yes. As a requirement from the legislature and the ARS that we have to go over our capital projects. And again, they're always shown publicly in the monthly financial report. That's part of our monthly financial report. And so it's a requirement once a year, but we show it every month. I just want to point that out. The updated report, again, shows $212,865 in our bond fund remaining. We've done a number of projects in the past, as you can see on the report. We have 3 identified projects that we may complete. Right now we're going out to bid for the adventure course. We've had our architect and contractor work on the old gym bathrooms and locker rooms, and we've kind of put on hold the CTE bathrooms with that, because we may want to just incorporate the gyms with that. There's more, the projects are more expensive than we have in the bond. but those are just some of the projects, and there are others going on too. So with that, any questions?
Mr. Rush, if we go forward with the old gym bathrooms, we've got an estimated cost that's obviously more than what we have. So where would the balance of the funding come from in order to do that?
Thank you. That's a good question. It can come in several ways. We are in communication with the SFB and actually had a representative on campus yesterday, and we met with them, and that's a potential. We have to show that it is needed. And so with our growing enrollment and proximity of other bathrooms, we hope to make a case for that. Also with that, the plan is to have locker rooms. There are some challenges to do that. There are some old locker rooms, but we have a challenge to have bathrooms and locker rooms, and actually a foyer that would go into the old gym. So SFB is an option. We can also use our own DAA or unrestricted capital funds, or we could use any reserve funds or M&O funds for that matter and just transfer them. There is also an option to go for a capital override, which school districts do. And school districts go out and do bond issues for capital improvements. There's obviously potential other ways to do it. You could go do some non-voted debt, so you could go ahead and school districts sometimes borrow money and then pay it over a period of time. That's called non-voted debt in a school district, which is legal. It has to go through board action. Those are most of the primary ways to do that. Sometimes a corporation may come through with a donation also, but normally it's through a bond issue or a capital levy.
With the SFB process, how long does that usually take? I mean, if they were out yesterday, I'm assuming we have to file something with them asking them. And does that include the air conditioning and the other roofing issues that we have, the structural issues of that building?
That's a good question. We're going to meet with some more folks at the SFB, a demographer and their capital specialist. So we'll know that a little bit more in detail later. The SFB only has about $20 million, and as you know, we were awarded a large grant. We have 3 other grants out there that we hope to be awarded to. Okay. But we'll continue down that process. I couldn't tell you for sure. First of all, it has to be, there has to be some criteria that it is needed, and they may not even bring it to their board meeting if we don't meet the criteria. So we'll have to go down those particular roads. But we have some other things that we're going to try and work with the SFB. One of the main reasons they were in the proximity was our older 800 building that we...
And then one last question, and I'll turn over for anybody else because I don't want to hog the mic. But grants or getting someone to partner in sponsorship, have we reached out to like the sporting, like the Arizona Cardinals or something like that? Because I know they're always looking to fund. They do nonprofit funding, and they do stuff like that, and they partner. So have we looked at something like that?
That's a good question. I've not reached out to them personally. I did have a very quick conversation with Gregory Rose about the possibility of the city partnering with that building for their own recreational uses, which a lot of school districts do. So that was just a beginning conversation, but a lot of districts and cities do that.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? No? Okay. I asked them all. Just reading everybody's minds. Thank you so much, Mr. Roush. Item E, sale of school property. Dr. Chestnut.
As you know, this topic comes up every few years, and I think the last time the board officially discussed this topic was spring of 2012, because I was watching YouTube videos from the state of Washington at that time, and I know it was on the agenda. Mr. Roush freshened up the research on this and went back and got some additional information for us. He put that into a very nice memo that was dated September 2nd, and we sent that out to you about that time, and has a lot of good background information in there. Kind of the summary of it is that if the school district decides to sell any of the pieces of property that we own, and we own several undeveloped pieces of property, that would have to be approved by the voters. And so that's one big hurdle, of course. The piece of property that we have really focused on, or Mr. Rouse focused on in the memo, was the lakes property right next to Global Water. And it is 24 acres. We received an estimate back in January from Land Advisors, Inc., that the land's value is $30,000 an acre for a total of $720,000. So if the voters approve the sale of that land, and assuming that price remains or is close to that, some of those funds could be used for school district purposes, and some funds would be used for debt reduction. And so he gave us those numbers in that memo. So looking at that number, 38% of those funds would go into reducing bonded debt that's still outstanding from the bond proposal that was approved by the voters in 2005. And then 62% of it, or about $450,000, could go into construction improvement or furnishing of school facilities for MUSD. So that is a summary of the memo, and Mr. Roush and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have on this.
If we if we voted to sell the property, we would have to pay for the election, correct, also?
Yes,
Okay, and what does that run us typically?
elections are about $30,000.
Okay.
Dr. Chestnut, when would be the earliest that we could put this on the ballot?
Yeah, I checked on that with Chris Thomas, the attorney for Arizona School Board Association, and he confirmed that all school elections are the general election, the November election only. So the first possible option would be November of 2016 for this issue.
Okay. And these funds cannot be used for M&O. They can't be used for salaries. They can't be used.
No.
School facilities or new facilities?
Or even equipment. We could buy equipment with it, correct?
I believe so.
Can we buy buses with them? With air?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe Mr. Roush knows the answer to that one.
It would go into the unrestricted capital account or the district additional assistance account and fall under those guidelines.
Okay.
Which means we could buy a bus with that. Mhm.
Okay. Are there any questions? Would you guys like to put this on the future agenda to vote on, and we can move forward with that? There's some things that we need to take in consideration if we do that. If it's a November 6th, if it's going to be on the 2016 ballot in November, there might be several items on that ballot as well, because we do have that possibility of an override. So please keep that in the back of your mind when we go to do this. Because we don't,
Yeah, and that's a good point, but I also think that
It's two separate issues.
it's two separate issues, and this shows that we are fiscally responsible for the school, with the school's resources and properties. If this is a property we don't see use for, or in the
Near future.
any in the far future, and an override is M&O. This is for,
But when we
facilities.
have this discussion, we need
Right.
to make sure that
Right.
it's not, we understand it,
Right,
we deal with it.
right,
The folks out there,
yeah.
not so much. So, okay, any other questions?
I would like to see it voted.
Okay, Dr. Chestnut, can we put this on the next agenda, please?
We can.
Thank you. All right, the override recommendation. Dr. Chestnut.
We had an override recommendation committee, and about 11 people took some time to discuss this issue over a period of several weeks, and we kicked around some ideas. I sent you a memo that summarized those recommendations, but I thought it would be good to go back through the issues and the details. And I'm informal, so please, if you have a question as I roll through these, please ask. So the task of the Override Recommendation Committee was to make recommendations on three things. Number one, should an override be placed on the ballot? And if so, should it be November 2016 or November 2017? Number two, if there is a proposal, what should be the term, the percent, and the focus? And I guess those were just the two tasks that they had. That brings us to tonight. We started by looking at our strategic plan and just reminding the committee that our goal is, number one, to improve student learning and become an A-rated school district, and any override proposal that we would consider should support that goal as well as our other three strategic plan goals. We talked about finances, and as you know, we tend to spend our maintenance and operation budget completely each year, which is really our plan. We're not a bank. We're not trying to make a profit. We're not trying to stockpile millions of dollars. We're trying to use the dollars that we have to the benefit of our students each year, while at the same time maintaining a prudent fund balance. And the district additional assistant budget is where much of our reserve fund is now. And so it's interesting to look at a snapshot from May 2012, 13, 14, and 15. Now, it varies from month to month, but you got to pick a month, and it's good just to compare year to year. Well, you'll notice that this last spring, our district additional assistance budget was somewhere around $2.7 million. The last 2 years, that fund has been higher because of the revenue we receive from district-sponsored charter school funding. And we put a large portion of those funds, additional revenue that we receive for our district-sponsored charter schools, we put those funds into reserve. And that's the reason that that particular budget is quite high, at least at this time. But as you also know, we used district-sponsored charter school funding to make some decisions over the last several years. And when we entered into that contract with the state of Arizona, it was a 15-year contract. So we made some decisions beginning in 2013-14 to spend some of that additional revenue in a prudent manner, including an all-staff base salary increase in 13-14 of $585,000. And because that was on the base salary, that'll be an ongoing obligation. 14-15, we made a similar increase to the all-staff base salary. The total cost was $787,000 that year. We spent $323,000 on transportation and an additional $105,000 in special ed staff. And then 15-16, we also made, we planned some additional expenses for this year, knowing that we had those reserve funds as I described. We also knew that district-sponsored charter school funding ended on June 30th of 2015, so our increases were modest for this year, as you can see. So that means that our ongoing additional expenditures are somewhere around $2 million based on those decisions that we've made, particularly in year 1 and 2 when we thought we had a 15-year contract with the state of Arizona. So that brings me to my next slide. Projecting out May of 2016, you can see that our district additional assistance budget will start to fall. And this is an estimate of where we will be. And obviously, as we adopt next year's budget, we will take this into account and we will come up with a balanced budget proposal. It is quite possible we could be looking at budget cuts in this next round of budget planning, which will start actually in December with the budget committee. So it's right around the corner. But it's still a little bit of an unknown. We don't know what the legislature is going to do. We know there's the inflation lawsuit that's out there that possibly could be settled with some additional revenue for us. There's several things that are in the works that will influence our decision making. But if nothing changes, We cannot obviously continue to spend down that DAA budget at that rate, and we're going to have to make some adjustments. So you can kind of see where the trend line is going there, at least what we're projecting at this time. So that all I think, points to the need for additional revenue for our district. Okay, some other fiscal realities that we're facing. Since 2008, Arizona K-12 state funds have decreased 24%. And so there really were some good old days for us as a state, really, and as a school district. We had a lot more money from the state of Arizona as recently as 2008. Obviously, the Great Recession impacted that, and then the restoration of those budget cuts has been very slow, painstaking process as the economy has improved. As I mentioned, district-sponsored charter school funding expired on June 30th. I got those out of order. I'm not sure how I did that, but our 10% override that was approved by the voters in 2005 expired in 2012. So we're in our third year with zero override funds for our district. Another reality that we face is there are 1,500 Maricopa students living in Maricopa but attending school in Kyrene Elementary School District or the Tempe Union High School District. Also, a reality is that MUSD voters have rejected the override proposal 6 consecutive times. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. Some other things, just random thoughts, ideas, points to make, and the one is that I think there's a belief out there that one reason we don't have any money is we spend it all on administration, and that is not true. We have low administrative costs, and we spend around $715 per student, and that includes pretty much most of the people in this building, as well as principals, assistant principals. And so we couldn't get by without a payroll department, for example, without a business office. And we still need these people. They're very important positions. And I think it's noteworthy that we are below the state average, and also our peer districts our size, have somewhere around $765 per student. So we're running a lean operation as far as administration is concerned. Why do we need an override? A lot of reasons. I think one is that our staff wants to provide the best education possible for our students, and an override will provide additional resources to assist in meeting that goal. We want to be an A-rated school district. I think we're pretty well focused on that. And I want to make it clear, I don't think that money is the only thing we need to do to become an A-rated school district. I don't think getting more money is the only thing that's preventing us from being there. We're going to continue to work hard on that goal. But we know that additional resources can provide additional programs, lower class size, and things that we need to accomplish that goal. Another reason we need an override is that a thriving, successful community needs a thriving, successful public school district. And I think that's the goal of our city. Another reality is that we have stiff competition. I keep doing that. Every week I have this problem, and I'm not doing that. I think Christian's playing a prank on me back there. Nearby school districts have approved overrides. Casa Grande Union High School District 10%, Casa Grande Elementary 10%, Chandler 15%, Kyrene 15%, Tempe Elementary 15%, and Tempe Union High School District 10%. So our two biggest competitors, Kyrene and Tempe Union, have had overrides in place for many years without interruption, and it allows them to have lower class size, additional academic offerings, and gives them a competitive advantage over us. Okay, override overview, just some basic facts. A maintenance and operation override allows a district to increase its M&O budget by up to 15%. That is the maximum. M&O funds are used exclusively for classroom supplies, academic programs, utilities, salaries, benefits, the baseline costs of running a school district. And about half the school districts in Arizona, especially the large ones, have overrides in place. So that represents about 70 to 85%, depending on the year. Students in our state receive override funds. It's a very common way to fund school districts in the state of Arizona. Here's our history. The last time we passed one was in May 2005. It was a 10% override. It passed with a 68% yes, but as you know, our population was much smaller back in those days, And there were a total of 506 votes. That's pretty interesting. And then you can see over time the number of voters has increased and really peaked in November 2012. General election, 12,387 votes. That was a presidential election. Big turnout and much bigger than November 2014 when the last time we ran when it was only 4,627 votes. So you can see the different proposals, everything from a 15% in 2011 was proposed, a 5% the last two times, so a little bit of history there. Our 2012 proposal, if you'll recall, was 5% for 2 years, and it was to fund additional teachers, expand blended learning, additional instructional technology. We proposed salary improvement for teachers and classified staff in that proposal. And that failed, had a 43% yes. The tax rate at that time would have been 57.5 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. So if your home was worth $100,000, that would be $57.50 per year. So about $5 a month on a $100,000 home. That would have brought in $1,350,000 in revenue. And the average assessed value of a home in Maricopa in 2012 was $87,000. So the annual tax rate would have been somewhere around, $45, $48, somewhere in there for the average person annually.
Now, was that at 10% or 15%?
That was 5%.
5%.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The 2014 proposal was similar. It was also 5%, but it was for 7 years. It would have funded up to 22 additional teachers. That was the bulk of it. 3 additional support staff. That didn't include administration. We're talking about secretaries or tech people or custodians, yep. And the third thing was instructional technology, and that would have raised $1,525,000. And the rate would have been 65 cents per thousand. It would have cost owner of a $100,000 assessed value home $65.25 annually, and that would have brought in $1,525,000. And the average assessed value of a home in Maricopa went up about $3,000 compared to 2012, when it was $90,000. So that brings us back to kind of our current reality, and as you know from reading the memo, as we discussed this with the Override Recommendation Committee, they were very sensitive to the need to have additional teachers to reduce class size. And so the first week of September, these were our class averages. There's some good news and some not so good news in there. As you know, Mr. Smith has 178 students in science, which is a large number. And in fact, if you go over to the right-hand side, you can see that Maricopa High School science is almost the largest category, averaging 36.4 students per class. Only the PE classes are bigger at the high school. If you go back to the left-hand side, you can see the kindergarten, at least the first week of September, the average class size was low, which is what you want. We want to have our lowest class sizes in K1 and 2. And it has gone up a little bit. As you know, our numbers have gone up. I've showed you those slides, but still, kindergarten lowest is really what we want to see. But right away, we jump up 26.8 in grade 1, and I know we've taken in a number of first graders since the start of school, since these numbers came out. And then you can see the middle school is in the middle there. That's appropriate. So you get an idea of our average class size, and the committee looked at those numbers and they said, the last 2 proposals were really pretty much on the money with recommending additional teachers to reduce class size. Also, we talked about instructional technology. It's an important part of our program, and we made some really good headway on this issue the last couple of years as a result of academic focus funds from district-sponsored charter school funding, as well as the Auction grant. So last year was kind of a banner year, kind of a high water mark in our ability to update computers and make them more widely available, take advantage of our Wi-Fi in online schools as a result of the Auction grant. So last year, we ordered 982 student computers, and there were 3 main funding sources. The Auction grant provided 436 computers, $224,000 worth, and then our academic focus Title I order was combined, and the total on that, 546 computers, $280,000. So we don't need to buy that many computers every year, but we do need to continue to refresh old computers, of which we still have a large number, and we talked about that at the override recommendation committee. And obviously, the two big sources of funding there are going away, and that is the auction grant has expired, and academic focus funds have expired as well. So just to remind you, going through some of the slides that I talked about with the committee, we do have a number of options on term. 7 years is the most common in our state, but you could go as short as a 1-year override proposal. In 2012, I think we had was it 3 years or 2? I've forgotten already. I just showed the slide. We had a short proposal in 2012. But there is a phase out if you go 5, 6, or 7 years. So if you reduce by a third in each of the last 2 years, so that it goes to 0 in the year after it expires. So there is a phase out. So even on a 7-year override, you only get 100% of those funds for 5 years. And then that's typically then the time you go back to the voters and talk about renewing it so that there won't be a decrease in that funding. So I mentioned that already. It can be between 1 and 15%. I guess that's all on that slide. Some things to think about with the November 16 election, which is coming up. It is a presidential election, so it will be like 2012. We'll probably get 12, 13, 14, 15,000 voters in MUSD voting precincts. That's a big number. It's also probable that Governor Ducey's land trust proposal will be on the ballot. Now that's yet to be determined. The legislature would have to make that decision if that needs to go on the ballot. There's obviously a lot of interest in doing that. Seems to have a lot of momentum behind it. If I was betting, I would bet that it will be on the ballot for the voters to decide. And if approved, it would provide $10 billion to public schools in our state over a period of 10 years. And if we ran an override and it was approved in the November 2016 election, those funds would be available in 2017-18 school year. So here's the final recommendations from the committee. Any questions before I roll through this? I'm kind of getting towards the end here. Final recommendations from the committee, and this is pretty much a consensus from the committee. They recommended a term of 7 years. The point was that in 2012 we had a 2 or 3 year proposal, and it didn't seem to affect our yes vote when we went to 7 years in 2014. The percentage that is being recommended is 15% from the committee. The election date that the majority of the committee recommended is November 2016. There were two people that made their opinion known that they favored November 2017, but otherwise I think the other 9 people were on board with November 2016. And then the focus, I kind of already hinted at that. Main item would be additional teachers to reduce class size. There was a theory that some of those additional teachers should include additional academic offerings, like foreign language, civics, some things like that we don't currently offer. We also had a discussion about cuts to CTE. The legislature in the last session made some cuts that will be implemented next year. We will reduce our CTE funding by about 50% statewide, and at least for schools, for high school programs, and that'll be a big cut. And so there was a theory that override funds could be used to support CTE courses as a possibility. The committee felt that we should include funding for technology, and then there was also the theory that we should consider paying for things that parents are already funding, like pay to play, calculators, school supplies, feeding kids, that kind of thing. So just a couple other thoughts. There was also, going back to election date, there was a recommendation that we talk to some professional consultants on their ideas about school elections and when's the best time to go. General election like November 16 or an off-year election like November 17. I contacted 3 different firms and asked for some free advice, some free information, and their opinion, based on research that they've done on overrides in recent history, is that Generally speaking, overrides do better in general elections, particularly presidential elections, because you get a better mix of voters. You get more people going to the polls, get a wider array of voters that show up. And we certainly see that in the numbers, right? Comparing 2012 to 2014. And there's probably a 5% advantage as compared to a gubernatorial election, which will be in 2016. They've documented this over time, that overrides do about 5% worse in gubernatorial election years because you just get fewer voters to the polls. And then an off-year election like 2017 would be less than that, tougher than that for overrides because you have a small number of people going to the polls. So that was the input from the professional people that I talked to, and I think that's my last slide. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Strategy, was there a reason why 15% was brought up versus maybe 10%?
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit, and Patty was on the committee, so I'll let her answer it too. I think that the theory was that a 15% override would have just as good a chance of passing as a 10% or even a 5%. And the polling that we did, if you recall this, but prior to putting something on the ballot, the governing board can authorize a professional firm to do some polling and get some polling information. And that was what that phone survey showed, was that it didn't matter to registered voters in Maricopa whether it was a 15% or a 10%. The level of support was basically the same in that poll. So I think that was the other reason. I don't know if you had anything else, Patty.
There was also some discussion with having that extra 5%, we could get more done quicker. And this community likes to see things done faster. They want to see results faster. Now, nothing's going to happen overnight, especially when it comes to education. It takes 2 to 4 years for you actually to see like the change in the test scores and the growth. But a lot of this stuff we could implement a lot quicker with more money. And the idea was behind, we're not going to stop those buses coming in until we can convince the community to choose our schools. They have to be the ones to pull those kids off the buses. We're not going to be able to stop those buses. So if we can be the competitor by having the same things that they have in the other districts, smaller class sizes, more academic offerings, and we can give parents the opportunity where they don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars in school supplies and pay to play and tax and test fees and everything else, that we would get there faster, because our goal is to become an A district. And a lot of it was, too, about, a lot of the members brought up, it's about community pride. It's about, having that A district and bringing in those businesses, and it's a win-win situation, not just for those community members or parents who have students in our schools, but it's also for our business community and our other residents, because if our district becomes an A district, more businesses will come in, the property values go up, and it's a win-win.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Really? This is pretty, part of it we talked about was a lot of the marketing. And really, in order to be, for this to be really successful, there's going to have to be, the PAC is going to have to raise a lot of money. They're going to have to, because it is going to be, we talked about tailored marketing. So if we're sending it to students south of the tracks, maybe with those communities there, those residential areas that we hit, that we talk about, not having to pay for school supplies. We send it to the residents of Province. Someone said to focus it on civics class. Targeting just specific targets that will pull the heartstrings and make them want to vote. And we looked at some of the other strategies that the other districts have used, and some of them actually put on there exactly what would happen. If this doesn't pass, we will need to cut this amount out of the budget, which is probably going to result in the loss of these many jobs. Now, we all know that Maricopa Unified School District is the largest employer here in Maricopa. And we don't want to cut anybody's jobs. They used the other districts, they used that in their, when they put the material out, their informational material, because people go, so what if the override doesn't pass, what are you going to do? They put that what if, this is what's going to happen.
The proposal doesn't say we're cutting, but like Dr. Chestnut said, we have $2 million that we've authorized in new spending over the last 4 years, which are important things. We have not done that, you know, without a lot of thought. I mean, it was necessary. But if we continue on the current funding path we're on, we can't afford those. I mean, if we continue to receive the same amount of money we've received this year, going into next year and the future, we won't have those reserves from the charter. So it would, if we don't get an override, create an imbalance, which I think we would have to cut some of the stuff, and then we'd have to decide what that is. So I see what you're saying. But I mean, it wouldn't just be, if we don't get it, we would have to make some cuts. If we get it, we can do a lot of great things. But I think you make a good point, President Cotray, about how it's going to require a lot of fundraising and a real campaign. And I agree with one of the committee members who said we need to look at, or whoever does this needs to look at getting a political consultant involved, because I think that Phoenix Union's doing an override right now, and they have a political consultant involved, and their marketing and their messaging and their campaign is really well done. We also need time to talk to our local officials and get them on board before we go out, before we take the step, because I think that's something, and I think, so in my mind, I don't know, I think that getting all those pieces together is going to be really tough for November 2016. I think that if we want to do it right, giving ourselves a little more time is definitely going to be to our benefit.
And I will say, those 2 votes that didn't want to go 2016, I was one of those votes. But, and it was very helpful to get the advice from the political advisors, because, Dr. Chestnut makes a good point, off years are more difficult to pass. But I'm concerned with the timing. If we were to go forward with a 2016 override, we would need to make that decision like next month. They need to have that full year to plan, to market, to raise the funds. The president of, is Jeff the president of the PAC? Okay. Jeff Komarchak, the president of the PAC, is really excited, really gung-ho, really wants to go forward with this, really thinks that we can put some teeth into it given the time. Last time we went for the override, we thought we'd given them enough time, and then there seemed to be some things that fell through the cracks, and they're really making sure that never happens again. But they need time to do it. I mean, I was driving all over the valley this last couple of weeks with soccer, and the districts, you got Gilbert, they've got signs up all over the place. Higley's got signs up all over the place. Vote yes for our kids. They've got the overrides going, and they're already out there. So, and they've been out there for a while. They've been out there since the summertime. So I think that we really need to make a decision next month if we're going to go for this, and if we're going to go for it next year.
Can I say something?
Certainly.
Thinking, we've had, for the last 2 board meetings, 2 teachers that come in to do awesome presentations. And I think if we use our teachers that love the district, that are doing great things in the district, that is a great marketing. Just their testimonies and their students' testimonies. If we're talking about pulling the heartstrings of our community, what else would do it?
Oh, we definitely need to have staff buy-in. Without a doubt, and that has been some of our downfall in the past. We have not had full staff buy-in. We have not had full parent buy-in.
But I think if parents see that, women vote.
No.
I don't know about you all, but I know the first presentation I had tears in my eyes, just sitting there looking at the young men in the audience, hearing his teacher talk about him like that. What else could do it. I mean, we know that gentlemen, they vote also. It takes a little bit more to pull their hearts, but if the wife is crying, I guarantee you, they're going to say, let's do this. And I think we've got to use what we have, and we've got to start making some changes now.
I'm just a little hesitant on the date. You know, he made some headway with me. I will give you that much. He made some headway with me, but I'm not there yet. But what I really would encourage all of us to do at this point is to, you know, compile all our questions, make sure we ask them, reach out to our elected officials. Let's make sure there's not another temporary tax increase. And, you know, to get their buy-in too. I know that our council in the past has always been big supporters of our school district, and I don't see that changing. So you know, there's another gamut on there. You know, there's going to be council member changes. There's going to be school board elections. You know, do we want to? I don't want our override to be a platform for that as well. That was the other thing about me trying to push for the 2017 year, is that I want the override to be just an override vote, not a platform for someone else. And that has happened in the past as well. And I want to make sure that all the correct information is out there. So at the next board meeting, Mrs. Anderson will be back too, because I really think it's important that all of us are here for this. I'd like to put it on as an action item, and we need to hash it out and make a decision. So please do your research, ask any questions. You know, Dr. Chestnut's just a wealth of information.
But if it's on as an action item.
We vote whether or not we want to go for it. We can vote whether or not we want to, if we want to move forward with it.
Well, action items then, don't you? Like, can you have to have one for 2016 and one for 2017, or no?
We could just put, determine passage of an override. You can always amend that motion, and say that I want to move the override, you know, have the override election in November of 2017. If it even.
Set up already now?
It's a political action committee, the PAC,
Okay.
because this district can't spend district funds on an election.
Okay.
So the Maricopa Education Foundation has formed that committee, so that's already in place. They just need to go out and, you know, get volunteers. It's a lot of footwork, and start making phone calls to solicit donations.
Is this not an ongoing concern for that foundation? I mean, since it hasn't passed in all these years, have they basically been established enough to already have people in place?
The last go-around with the override was the first time the Political Action Committee took over at MEF. Before, it was just a group of volunteers doing it. And it was a really grassroots effort.
Okay.
Do you know how much did they spend on the campaign? Do we know that?
We had about $8,000 or $9,000.
8 or 9.
It was pretty low budget.
And what did they say at the committee?
Yeah.
Someone recommended what needed really to be spent. Was it 35?
Could be as high as 35, yes. But that would be strictly from the PAC. And
Yeah,
as
right.
you mentioned, it's an important distinction to draw that school district cannot be involved with promotional activities. We can provide information, but you know, we can't ask people to vote yes.
Put it on the ballot, we can. We can do it
In
now.
our free time. I mean, I can do that after, I can work on that committee after work hours, but in other words, the school district newsletter can't encourage people to vote yes. We can provide information about the override proposal, but that's it.
Emails, could you? From your emails, that would even
Not
be-
your school email,
Yeah.
personal only.
Yeah.
You can receive
That or-
information, you can never forward it.
Right.
Right.
And also the teachers, you know, not being able to make copies and.
But what the teachers can do is they can do a public records request for all of the email addresses for their students, and off of their personal email, they can send out an email to each one of those parents asking them to vote yes. And that is not a violation.
Yeah, businesses in our community part of this committee for representation?
Yes. A number of local businesses contributed money to the PAC. I know that for a fact, yes.
Okay. But I mean, a part of your committee that you guys did,
The
the
override
override
committee?
committee? Were any of them present, a part of it?
Yeah, yeah, Scott from In Maricopa,
Yes.
Jeff Kamarchek from Crate Coffee. The people?
Yeah, well, I saw the people, but I mean,
Yeah,
still, I'm
There was two business owners on the committee.
okay.
Oh, and I think that's another thing I think we should talk to the chamber.
And I have talked to the chamber, and I think that they would fully support it.
They were supported last time, and they donated
Yes.
money to the PAC, yes.
Yes.
So we only have 1 month to do research?
Yep. You guys have known this is coming
I'm
up.
really busy this month, okay.
You know, I just think if we keep pushing this off, then we're going to stick that PAC with an unrealistic task if we were to choose to go to in 2016. And I don't want to push it off if that's what we're going to do. I want this to be successful.
Well, you know, we can't guarantee that, but we can definitely make sure we put the work in.
Every override election, I've been out there with my yes signs
I
and
know.
getting the honks and everything else. But you know what, I just don't want to push. I don't want to push it off anymore. We've got to make this decision as a board. So, sorry, Anna Marie.
Have to make this decision, absolutely.
All
So-
right. Are there any other questions, comments? Good questions, good discussions, guys. Now you have homework. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Do I have any motions, discussions?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Mr. Beckett, the HR schedule.
Thank you, President Chestnut. Tonight you have the personnel schedule in front of you. A number of items on there that may be of interest, but again, I can address any of those that you have questions about.
I've got a question and then a comment. So my question is on the resignations. On number 3, there was no assessment, and on number 5, there was. Can you explain why that?
Thank you, President Couture. Each one of the individuals that submits a resignation obviously has a reason for doing that, and we have obviously used some discretion in whether we move forward with the assessment of a fee. It is based upon an individualized reason. We believe that the individual involved in number 3, obviously a very legitimate reason, and we can't really go into detail there, but the 5th one, we felt that that was not a aggravating or mitigating reason to not assess that fee, and so our recommendation is that we move forward with that assessment.
And I did notice that number 3 was already replaced, so there wasn't any downtime without a teacher?
That is correct.
Okay. And then my comment is regarding the pilot for the 7 full-time substitutes. I'm really excited for this. I think this will help, especially some of our administrators, and I just hope that this works out. So kudos for coming up with that.
We're optimistic that it will help in the process. We've had some challenges with the Affordable Care Act and being able to keep employees employed in the classroom as well, but then having those substitutes being able to fill those slots as they become open. And so it has been a challenge, and we're optimistic, as you stated, that these 7 full-time substitutes will help to fill those gaps.
And you will make sure that sorry about that, you'll make sure that on the days that, let's say, we don't need subs, that they have duties that they will be tasked to do, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Member Miller.
That was going to be my question. So they will show up every day? And to either a school where their teacher is out, or if not, to help in some capacity, which I'm sure there's probably always going to be a school with a teacher out, but, okay.
Right. We are working through kind of the particulars of how those assignments and the selection process, those kind of
Right.
things are still working out, but we wanted to obviously get this hurdle accomplished first of just getting your approval to move forward with it. But again, we're hoping to establish a fair selective process. There would be a collaborative experience in terms of determining where those assignments are going to be if on a given day. But I would say any given day, we have at least 7 openings.
Great.
And
But
these,
now we'll have somebody for those openings.
Exactly.
Nice.
and these substitutes, they will be certified, not like a temporary certification, they will be actually certified teachers?
Yes, all of our substitutes will be certified, yes, correct. Mhm. No emergencies.
Questions? Okay. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you.
Item 7B, discussion and possible approval of the annual financial report. Mr. Roush?
Thank you, President Cottret, members of the board. Dr. Chestnut, again, if you had a chance to review the AFR, and per ARS 15904, we have to present this AFR, and I did send out some highlights, and they were pertaining to page 3, and which is the most of the detail for the report. So I'm open to answer any other questions you might have at this time.
Any questions?
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Roush. All right. 7C, discussion and possible approval for MUSD to join the Public Education Reform Advocates. Dr. Chestnut.
We discussed this issue at our last governing board meeting, and I'm recommending that we join this group. Mr. Roush was able to get a hold of 2 pieces of the literature that is being used by this group, and very nicely done materials. One thing that you have at your place there, I think one thing that I didn't make clear last month when we were talking about this is that the goal of this group is not only to do outreach to legislators and decision makers in the legislature, but also decision makers around the state. So chambers of commerce, business leaders, governmental leaders, people that are in positions of influence. That is also a target group. Those are target groups for public education reform advocates. Be glad to answer any other questions you might have.
Questions?
I don't have any questions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. And number 8, adjournment. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Well, come on, guys.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned 7:54. Thank you.